Hey guys, I wanted to take a couple of minutes here to just kind of go over a little bit of this software called Gimp. Okay, now Gimp was created by some developers, and it's available um, on GNU, which is where a lot of developers put things for free download. So it does kind of look a lot like. Oh, this is out of focus. Let me focus this real quick. It does kind of try to emulate some of the features that you might find in Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator. But since Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator are quite pricey, and since we're in this pandemic situation, one thing that you can use for this project is something called Gimp. So Gimp is kind of like we're going to use this to create a digital flip book. So that's the purpose of this particular project. And so I'm going to direct your attention over to our screen. And so here's your assignment for digital flip books using Gimp. So in the Google Classroom assignment, I've placed a rubric, right? So this will be worth 30 points. And this rubric isn't actually evaluating not just the GIF or the GIF, but some other stuff. So I just went ahead and closed Google Classroom. So let me just go ahead and reopen that real quick. And my dog is getting into something. So Winston, don't be naughty. Okay. All right. So back to animation. And we're going to go to our project. Here we go. Back to our digital flipbook using Gimp. So I have a link for you that has a download link for Gimp. Now, if you can't download it to your Chromebook, please let me know. Chromebooks are very locked down since they do belong to school. What I would recommend is if you can't download it to your Chromebook and you have access to another computer at home, your gaming computer, and a lot of you have your own computers, or whether it's one of your parent or guardian's machines, laptop or whatever, you can download it onto there. Since it is a developer software on GNU, it will be virus free, so it won't hurt your computer. And after you're done with this project, you can go ahead and delete it with no problems. So here's the download link, and here is some instructions that we're going to use for this project. So go to the instructions. You can go to it step by step, but I'm going to explain how to just go ahead and do this particular project. So the first thing, obviously, you're going to install. Then you're going to open, and then it says, time to get started. And I'm going to go right here real quick, just so I can have it somewhere else. And I'm going to open up Gimp. And so once you've downloaded and you open Gimp, this is what it's going to look like. Okay. All right. So the first thing it says is open Gimp, and it says go to select file, and new. Okay. And then what you're going to do is, it says right here, you'll select an image template that you would like to use for your images. So you have a drop down here, and you can use anything. What I'm going to use for my template, since this is something I'm going to, it's going to be a film, I'm going to use a YouTube type of look. And in this case, I'm going to go to a 1920 by 1080 full HD version. Okay. And I can look at advanced options if I want to, but I'm not going to. Well, let me just take a look at something. Because I want my background to be solid background. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hit OK. And now, just like you would see with Adobe Photoshop, you're going to see a screen. Okay. All right. So this is 1920 by 1080 resolution screen. And this is basically what we call a canvas. And on that canvas, you're going to be able to draw. Now, here's all the different tools or toolbar, all the different things. And you can see a lot of very similar tools to Adobe Photoshop. And here we have our brush styles, which are kind of cool. Okay. And so the next instruction, once Gimp is open, it's going to say, draw your first frame. Now, what I want to do is draw your attention right here to this area. This is where we have our layers, just like you would in Photoshop. And we can create new layers, which is actually what we're going to do with this flipbook animation. So, draw our first frame. So it says get creative. You can play around using different tools. Gimp has a huge range of tools to use. Even highly advanced graphic designers use Gimp to create professional illustrations. A good place to start is the paintbrush or pencil tools with corresponding icons in the toolbox. Once they're selected, you can control the thickness of the brush by changing the size and settings in the toolbar options. Again, these are all right here. So you can go ahead and start painting. I'm going to do a very simple bouncing ball using the element of squash and stretch. It's not going to be very good, but I'm just going to do something quick for you. Okay. So again, I'm on step number 3 in the paper. You can see that my paintbrush tool has been selected, and I can push it down. And again, there's some other embedded tools, just like in Photoshop. So I can use a pencil tool. My pencil tool has different thicknesses, or I can use a paintbrush tool. So with this one, I'm going to paint, and I'm just going to start drawing a ball. So this ball is going to, and what we're going to do is we're going to select some keyframes, if you will. They're not really keyframes, but then I'm going to do fill-ins later on. So I'm going to do my original ball right here again. This is hand-drawn. Obviously, you can use different shape tools here if you just want to do a perfect ball. So there's my first one, okay? And if you look right here, you're going to see this where it says background. So this is our first frame. Again, if we're doing a flipbook, so our first frame or our first piece of paper that we're drawing on. All right, so if you look on the instructions now, and again, we can fill it in if we want to. We can use a color. If you play around, you look around, your pattern fill would be yellow, so you can fill it in yellow or whatever. I have to change the color. I'm going to go Control-Z and just kind of X that out. Okay. All right. So again, what I would recommend for you is to, let's see, we got some different textures that look kind of fun. So you can do different textures or whatever if you want to. I'm just going to go ahead and take that out. So Control-Z. I'm going to keep it simple. You guys shouldn't. You guys should be creative. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw another layer, because it says right here, step number 4, draw more frames. Let's think about layers in our image. And again, layers are like pieces of paper in our flipbooks that we have. So again, what are layers? Well, imagine putting 20 hours into creating an illustration only to make a mistake and then have to throw the whole thing out. So in order to manage your work effectively, you can put different parts of the image on different layers. In addition, layers allow you to build a more realistic and complex image. So think about what we've talked about, the 3D, and we've talked about different backgrounds and characters in the front, and maybe we can use a movie or pictures in the background. That's what we mean by layers. But in our case right here, we're just going to use layers just to draw a flipbook animation. Okay, so we're going to do a digital flipbook. So we're going to go right here where it says layer. We're going to create a new layer. And we're just going to call this squash. It could have a number too, but we're going to call this one squash. And you can see here's our layer called squash. The first thing you're going to see about our layer by default is that this layer is transparent. How do we know it's transparent? Because this checkerboard pattern represents transparency. We're doing a flipbook right now. So if I kept this transparent, my final animation would basically show every layer below it, right? So now what we're doing is we're stacking layers on top of layers. Again, the idea of layers is that we have our background layer, and then we're drawing on top of that layer, right? And then we'll draw on top of that layer and on top of that layer. So when we looked at, some of those animations or Lego or whatever that we've looked at, animators would use a background layer, let's say, a photograph or a film. And then on top of that, they put a layer of an animated character. And then maybe on top of that, they put some other layers. So that's what we're talking about, using layers, using Gimp. It's really great if you're doing some illustrating. In this case, we're just doing a flip book, so we don't want it to be transparent. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go right here to my squash layer, and you know what? I'm going to keep it transparent for now. I just changed my mind. For now, I'm going to keep it transparent. But be aware that, of course, now I'm drawing on a new layer on top of this layer. And I'll tell you why I'm going to keep it transparent. I'm going to keep it transparent because I want to see kind of my relative position of my different balls. Okay, so now I'm going to draw my squash ball. So this is my ball on the bottom, squash. Okay, remember that volume must stay the same. I'm not doing a very good job, but this is squashed. In fact, if I was doing a shape, and I'm sure there's a shape layer here somewhere, I could actually duplicate that layer and then just kind of change the shape of that shape. And then I'm going to do another layer, new layer, and I'm just going to call this final. This is my last layer. And you call it whatever you want. This is now another layer, and I'm just going to draw another ball up here. Okay, so now I'm going to draw my in-betweens. I'm going to draw my in-betweens now. So I'm going to go to layer, new layer, and layer 2. Okay, this is layer 2, and now I'm going to move its position, and I'm going to draw another ball here. Now it's transparent, so I can see every layer beyond it. Layer, new layer, and I'm just going to click OK, and it's going to automatically name it, and it's going to stack it on top of my last layer. Now I'm going to try and stretch this out a little bit, right? Very good. Now I'm going to go layer, new layer, click OK, and I'm going to draw a really stretchy one now. And I'm going to keep layering. New layer. Okay. In this case, I'm going to start coming up back in this direction. I am a horrible drawer, as you can see. New layer. Okay, so I kind of shortened that, but you can see that I have. So what I need to do is I need to move my squash layer between this layer, which I believe is right here, right? So I'm going to move squash down here. So you can kind of see my images, right? My background. Okay, so now I've drawn my very, very bad flip book. You guys will do better than this. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way to export animation, step 5. Click File, Export to turn your layers or frames into an animated GIF or GIF. Name your file at the bottom of the screen and choose the folder you'd like to save it to. Then expand the select file type by extension arrow and select GIF or GIF from the drop-down menu and click Export. So I'm going to go to File, Export. I'm going to do the Export As. And now I'm going to export it to my desktop. I'm going to give it a name, Bouncing Ball. Oh, I'm going to do Murphy. Please put your names on them so that I know whose they are. And now you're gonna save it to your jump drive that I gave you, okay? That way it doesn't get lost. But of course, if you're working at home, it doesn't matter. But you don't want it to end up somewhere on your parents' desktop and cluttering up their computer, especially if they're kind enough to loan it to you. But I will use it on my desktop for now, just so I can look at it later. Now go down here where it says File Type. Click on that, and I can scroll down to where it says GIF image. And then I'm going to click Export. It's going to open up a window. Hopefully you can see this window. Yes, very good. All right. And interlace, GIF comment. Make sure that you click as animation. That will make it an animation. If it's unclicked, it's not going to be an animation. It's just going to be a series of pictures, right? So as animation, loop forever, delay between frames, leave that by default. Then just click export. You're going to see a little progress bar. So now I should be able to, let me do this, drag this here. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to open up this. And yes, okay, so you can see that right there. I have an extended desktop. So when I double click this and open this, it's going to play it. But the problem is that, well, you'll see the problem in 1 second. Whoops. It opened it on my second extended desktop. So it's taking a second to come up, but as soon as it comes up, I'll drag it over and you'll be able to see it. So obviously we're going to make some changes in our layers. And I think what I want to demonstrate to you right now is that our layers are transparent. And so that doesn't really work for this animation. Drag this over here. It's taking its time. So you can see that, yes, all my layers are working, but I'm seeing every layer, right? And that's what happened because I made it transparent, kept it transparent. So it's an easy fix. I'm going to go open up Gimp again, and I'm going to double click this, right click it, and I'm going to remove the alpha channel. You're going to see that it's white now. Right click it, remove alpha channel. Ideally, when you create a new layer, you want the layer to already have no alpha channel, but by making it transparent, you can kind of work the layers on top of each other. And I'm sure if I click the first one, shift, and the last one, select multiple layers, whoops, I just made a copy, so I can't do that. Remove alpha channel, and now I'm going to do the same process again. File, export as, Murphy bouncing ball, GIF, select file type by extension. I'm going to make sure it's a GIF image. Click export. I'm going to replace my old one. Again, keep all the same things. It's an animation. And I'm going to export it. We'll see our progress bar down here. And once that animation has finalized, okay, maybe it didn't. So now we should be able to see the same animation, but this time, as you can see, since it's not transparent, we can see through it, okay? That's how we're going to be using Gimp, and hopefully you saw that. Okay. Let's see my beautiful face. There we go. All right. That's the project. That's where you're going to be working on. Make it better than that. Get creative. Draw your ball nice and round, fill it in, use a texture. The texture will fill in, once you've done your outline. So have fun with it. All right. And again, if you can't download it to your Chromebook, try and download it to another computer in the house. After that, you're done with it. You can uninstall it, or you can keep it on there for hours and hours of fun. Okay, guys? All right. That's all I have for now. That's the project. Have fun with it.